welcome back to the Collin Cadmus Podcast. Today I'm joined by Kyle Coleman. Kyle graduated from William and Mary Raymond A. Mason School of Business in 2010 and then started his career as an account executive at Gyro for 10 months before landing his first leadership position as sales development manager at Looker, where he grew into the director and senior director of sales development over a 6-year tenure. After Looker, Kyle moved on to become the director of sales development and enablement at Clari, where he grew into his first VP role, followed by SVP of Marketing and Chief Marketing Officer over a 5-year journey, until landing his most recent and current position as Chief Marketing Officer at Copy.ai. With all that's changing in B2B outbound and so much discussion around whether sales development is a function of sales or marketing, I can't think of anyone better to ask than someone who has spent their entire career leading sales development only to transition into leading marketing. Before we get started, if you're watching on YouTube, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave us a comment if you have questions. If you're joining us from Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please drop us a review and let us know what you think of the episode. This stuff really helps to grow the audience. Without further ado, let's dive in and get his thoughts on all that's changing in B2B sales and learn what's working and what isn't working for Outbound at Copy.ai. Kyle, thanks for joining me and welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, Colin. Looking forward to this.
So let's jump right into it. I have 9 different questions here. I have basically been going through a series of pretty much the same questions with a bunch of people. I mix it up a little bit, but for the most part, I've been trying to sort of aggregate everyone's thoughts on some of these big topics that are hot for me. So what do you think is broken with B2B outbound and how did we get here?
What a good question, Colin. What's broken is B2B go-to-market. It's not necessarily B2B outbound. And what's happened is, let's call it over the last 10 or 15 years, we have all gotten addicted to this concept of scale. And we want to only do things at scale. And we want to bring on the products and the hyper specialists. And we want to create the process that allows us to do things, quote unquote, at scale. And that just created so many bad behaviors. It created this really bloated go-to-market organization. It created this litany of point solutions that are, tech that's for specific people or teams. It's not actually interoperable in any real way. It created hyper specialists that are maybe have a deep expertise, but don't really have a breadth of capabilities or responsibilities. So they're not as capable of providing as much leverage to the business as they would be otherwise. And it's very expensive to do. It's very expensive to have grown go-to-market organizations this way. But we could do it because money was cheap. It wasn't free all the time, but it got pretty damn close to being free. So we could justify, let's spend money on this, and this. And we don't have to worry as much about what the payback is on this stuff because nobody's keeping us accountable to it. That all changed as soon as money was no longer free. And we had to really check ourselves and be like, is this the right way to really build and grow an efficient, effective go-to-market organization? And that's the question that people are reckoning with right now. I'll say one more thing, Colin, which is I think the mistake a lot of people made, a lot of companies made, is they said, this playbook worked for Salesforce, or this playbook worked for insert whatever company you want to insert. Therefore, it'll work for us. Without really thinking about, well, what are the market dynamics of, let's just use Salesforce as an example. Salesforce has a ton of market pull. Salesforce has a huge brand presence. Salesforce has all of this capital that they can work with. Just because some playbook is working for some company doesn't mean it's the right one for you. So you see PLG or really transactional companies bringing on SDRs and you're like, what are you doing? There's no way that investment in SDR is a match for your business model. But they say, our investors said that we got to follow this playbook. And so we got ourselves into this problem because we lacked the critical thinking, because there was not as much accountability on the money that we were spending. And it's boiled up to this point now where things are pretty ineffective.
Bingo. So many home runs there, and you just packed it in so concisely. That was perfect. And yeah, a lot of this is driven by the financial markets. And it's also, to your point, it's investor direction too, right? Once they find a playbook that is somewhat repeatable, let's say we're going to throw that playbook out 20 times, it's going to work 2 times. That works for them. They can figure out now an investment model. They're going to make money, but that does not work for the 18 people that it didn't work for. And many of us have fallen victim into getting into those traps and whatnot. And so I think that's what a lot of people are waking up to is like, I don't want to be one of those 18.
100%, Colin. And what I want to really emphasize here, I think there's a lot of focus, understandably, on outbound because it's so visible and there's so many people that are doing the role and it's easy to, make fun of and all the rest. But marketing has the same sort of problem. Where the stat is crazy, and you might know it better than I do, Colin, but the last I saw, it was something like 60 some odd % of VC money just gets funneled right back to Google ads and Facebook ads. And you're like, wait, what? We're just spending money on ads. And why are we doing this? We're doing this as a marketing team. Number one, like we just talked about, VC expectations. We're going for growth. It's a playbook that they've seen work before, yada, yada, yada. But also because it's easy to scale. If you give a marketing person $100,000 to spend this quarter, it's easy to spend that money on ads. It's hard to spend that money on thoughtful in-person events. If you're going to go coordinate 20 events in 6 months, that's hard to do. It's way easier to just pull the lever to say, hey, I'm checking the box here. I can do my SEM. I can do my retargeting. I can pull this lever and say, I'm doing my job as a marketing person. I'm engaging my audience as a marketing person. So when we talk about what's broken, I think it's really important for us to think about go-to-market holistically and answer the question for you as a business, what is the best way? Like putting aside the scale question, let's go down to the atomic level. Let's say that you have to get in front of ServiceNow. They're the account that you have to crack into. Ask yourself the question, what would you do to get in front of ServiceNow? What would be the strategies that you would pursue? And then ask yourself the question, why would you not do this for every single account that you want to penetrate? And think about it in a bottoms up, like atomic sort of way. And if you are executing a high quality set of go-to-market execution across or for a single account, you don't need to do that for 10,000 accounts. Maybe you need to do it for 100 or a few hundred, and that's much more doable. It just requires more effort. And that's what I think a lot of teams are starting to realize now is you don't need to boil the ocean. You need to be smarter with targeting and smarter with execution. It definitely is possible.
Yeah. So it sounds like, and I'm hearing this theme a lot in different sets of words. It's sort of going back to things that don't scale because we've almost just scaled things too much, right? There's too much noise. There's too much cold outbound. And it worked. I like to say to people, like, it worked when we were all the first SaaS product solving our problem.
Right.
Right. Because no one knew there was a solution. You reach out like, hey, do you have this problem? They're like, oh yeah, kind of, maybe. Like, did you know there's this like new cloud-based amazing way to solve it? And you're like, whoa, never heard of that. Like, but now it's like my inbox is filled with that. Right.
There were real problems to solve, Collin. Like there were real problems. And now you get outreach and it's like, hey, we have this SaaS solution that helps you dot I's and cross T's. And you're like, why would anybody ever need this? And you just got to the point where like we got super, and the VC, I think, investment exacerbated this problem quite a bit because so many of these startups got funded and needed to find a niche, and the niches just kept getting smaller and smaller, and the problems ended up getting smaller and smaller, and they were not painkillers. They were barely even vitamins. It's like, do we really need this stuff? So not only did the channels get a lot more crowded, but the value of the messaging and the value of the solutions in the market got way less. And that it's just this compounding kind of like vicious cycle that ended up getting created. Yeah.
Lots of people trying to solve these micro problems, as I call them, and they're just micro products, right? But they want to build a whole company around it. And even if the product is great and it solves the product super well, what people just often don't realize is it worth someone buying another tool? Because that's the way buyers, I think, are thinking today, because we all just have tool fatigue. Our tech stacks are too big and all that stuff.
100%.
But let's transition a little bit. We sort of dove into it a little bit there, but what do you think will happen with growth at all costs? I mean, we basically defined it there in a nutshell, but what do you think is going to happen to it? We talked about the money piece there. Do you think it's coming back when money gets cheap again? Or do you think like the game has changed forever? I'll give you my take really short here. And I've said this before, but I think we're splitting into sort of two paths today where companies are picking. Do we want to go for this new hyper efficient, like more, quality over quantity route? Or do we want to go with the traditional, sales development model? No, I think a lot of people are just grandfathered into the old thing. It's already in their plan. They raised the money. They made the promises to investors, and so they have to do it. But then I also think there's the companies that should do it. And I keep using Rippling as the example because they're just looking for the market share. They have a killer product. Like the faster they can move into that market, the better. In that case, like spend the money, get the customers, totally makes sense. Aircall, I think same thing, like do it, get the customer, get the market share. But when you're dealing with newer SaaS products, you're kind of carving new categories or solving new problems. I mean, what's your take there? Do you think growth at all costs has a future, or is it just toast? Is it gone? Is it cooked, as the kids would say?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Collin. Like it depends. And this should have always been the answer, but it wasn't. We tried for the one size fits all. But the fact of the matter is markets still reward growth more than anything else. Private markets and VC money, public markets and investors, growth is still the thing that's most rewarded. And so situationally, time and a place, you mentioned Rippling, you mentioned Aircall, I totally agree. I would put ourselves, Copy.ai, in the same
I was
sort of
going to ask.
category.
I thought you probably were, but I wasn't sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll put up maybe a slightly finer point on it. But the reason I say this is because there is something of a land grab right now for AI solutions. Every company needs an AI strategy. More specifically, every company needs a go-to-market AI strategy. They are creating AI councils. They're creating all of these things that are perfect for us. We are seeing and riding this wave of organic demand and all these things that are coming our way. And so we have to capitalize on it. We have more, this is going to say, like, forgive me, but we have more demand than we can process, frankly. We have 8 salespeople. We could have 20 salespeople and be fine, like to process all the demand that we have. That's expensive. And so I say this, we could have 20. We do not. And
you'd have to pass that cost on to someone.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly. And so are we falling victim to growth at all costs? Maybe not. Maybe not quite as aggressively as we would have, because myself and the other operators in the business, we saw what happened when you grow too fast and you have to wind things down. It is super painful. It's not fun. It's a terrible thing to be a part of, frankly.
Inhumane in many ways.
It really is. It really is tough. And it's hard. It's like impossible. It's so stupid for me to like justify, well, the business outcome is good, so forget the people outcomes. Like, I'm just not wired that way. I'm not wired that way. So we're being much more mindful about growth. And we're trying to make sure that we have every single component of the customer lifecycle really hammered out. So like, if we had 20 salespeople right now, we could be creating, 2 or 3 times as many customers. But then what? Are we actually going to be able to make them all successful? Do we have the customer success, implementation, account management product that we need?
That's always the next problem, right? It always, like, these dominoes of problems.
That's right. And we just don't want to push everything downstream. And so we're making a bet on growth for sure. But it's not quite as conservative as, you might see some other companies being, like the hyper efficient, we have to be profitable immediately type growth. We are still venture backed. There are still expectations. Like, we're expected to triple our revenue next year. And we get what we pay for because we're 5xing our revenue this year. So like, it's a good problem to have, but it is still a problem. But we're not just doing it mindlessly. And we're not just doing it that makes sense in a spreadsheet. We're being much more conscientious about all of the business outcomes that are all the business considerations that we need to make to be able to support that growth in a sustainable way. So we're trying to be more balanced about it while understanding that we're still like maybe subscribing 80% to the growth at all costs mantra, but we're not all in.
Yeah. With 8 reps, I mean, what's your, I was throwing in a little extra sub question here. What is your thought on when you add more? How are you guys thinking about that? Are you scaling demand ahead of headcount? Do you have sort of a model for like, here's what needs to happen before we need more reps? Or is it already planned in? Like, we're going to hire them at this month. How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Collin. It's all about leading indicators for top of funnel. So, well, I shouldn't say it's all about those it's about leading indicators for what the top of funnel looks like. And it's about the win rate metrics. And are we holding or increasing, hopefully, those win rates of the opportunities that we're processing? And when we check a box to say, okay, we went from producing 20 opportunities a week to 30 opportunities a week, and the win rate of those extra 10 opportunities is still holding at 15, 18%. Okay, we're good to go to bring on our next person who can carry a $1.2 million quota. So like, we're being very smart about how all of this is working while understanding that there is still a 3 to 6 month ramp for new sellers. And like, we have to make a little bit of a bet, but it's a much more better informed bet that is substantiated by the demand that we're able to generate and sustain, and the customers that we're able to sustain and make successful, but versus just, like I said, it looks good on a spreadsheet, so let's just go do it.
Yeah. Let's dive into the next question. I'll start by asking how quota attainment is with you guys. I would imagine with taking that approach that you're probably getting most people roughly to quota, that you probably don't have a major problem with that because you're not pushing for the headcount before the demand. But so if you want to tie that, if you want to talk a little bit about that as I ask this question, you can kind of mesh it together. But the broader question is like, why do you think sales quota attainment is so low throughout the industry? What's going on there? Do you think it's tied into the growth at all cost? Or, are people just, you can run away with it there, but then maybe tie it into what's working for you guys?
Yeah. So I'll start with kind of what I've seen as being broken, Collin. And I've seen you write and speak a lot about this. So I think we're going to be on the same page here, which is companies are not setting their teams up for success. They are going through the spreadsheet exercise to say, well, if we have X number of reps and they have $1 million quotas, therefore we're going to bring in this many $1 million of revenue. And like, that's just such a simplistic way of thinking about things. There are product market fit considerations, there are demand considerations, there are customer success and implementation like there's a whole other slew of things that you need to do to make reps successful. And I think that a lot of companies will get some early indicator of there being product market fit or thinking that they have product market fit, and then doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on this thing without realizing like, oh, actually, that was just our founder selling to friends and family. Like this wasn't actually.
Yeah, I wish investors would warn people of this. Like it seems the investors are just as trigger happy on the product market fit as the founders. And it's like, okay, you sold a few deals, you got some happy customers, but like what happens next? Let's play this out, right? So let's say you go raise $5 million or $10 million right now, or even more. You're going to do a big PR push and you're going to start telling the world about this great new thing that you have. You're going to pump it up, rocket ship, excitement. What happens then? Do all of your potential competitors or competitors just sit around and say, okay, let them go take that?
Yeah.
Or do they come after you full steam ahead and 6 to 12 months later, all of a sudden it's not as easy to close deals. You're not the only one solving this problem. Someone one-upped you because they're figuring out you're moving too slow in one area. And like all of a sudden the ship's crumbling down. You have 50 SDRs you're in the process of hiring. Yeah. And you're like, oh shit, like we had product market fit, but it's not this one time like and forever type of an event. You have to have product market fit and re-earn product market fit every single day.
Over and over and over. And then the other thing that I see, Collin, which I'm not sure you've spoken as much about on this podcast, but Chris Walker talks a lot about this, which is the source of pipeline matters so much more than people understand. And in the early days, you're going to get organic pipeline. You're going to get warm intros. You're going to get friends and family. You're going to get nice, quote unquote, signal that people are interested in the product that you're selling. You're like, okay, great. We have our first $1 million in revenue. We have our first 10, 15, 20 customers, whatever. Now let's pour gas on the fire. Now we're going to create new pipeline channels for ourselves. Now we're going to create pipeline via outbound. Guess what? That pipeline is way colder, lower velocity, lower conversion than your organic raise my hand pipeline. Or, hey, we're going to go scale our search and we're going to start bringing leads in via the ads that they see on Google or LinkedIn or whatever. Guess what? Much lower intent, much lower velocity pipeline. And so again, just because it looks good in a spreadsheet and you say we went from $5 million in pipe gen to $10 million in pipe gen, therefore we can double our revenue. Like, no, there's way more nuance. You have to be way smarter about what your pipeline mix is. And so as we are thinking about how we're growing and scaling our go-to-market organization, we're being really careful about what that pipeline mix is. And I don't mean to say like you need to bend over backwards understanding attribution and all the rest, because that can get you into some more trouble.
I actually say just try not to waste your time on that stuff. Yeah.
But you do need to understand like how are people learning about you? How are they converting? Yeah. And what is the high level win rate on that type of thing? Like I know as an example that the win rate for outbound sourced, like cold outbound sourced opportunities in my experience is about half of what a demo request, raise my hand, go through the sales cycle type.
And cycle twice as long, probably.
Cycle's probably twice as long.
Roughly speaking, yeah.
100%. Now, the virtue of the outbound source is like we're targeting the right accounts. We might get to power a little bit more readily, or, there's other virtues of the outbound source, but you have to bake that in to the way that you're thinking about your demand gen engine and therefore your hiring plans. And I think this is a large reason why a lot of sales teams are failing is because the quality of pipeline that they are working is decreasing as their team size increases. And that creates this huge gap in pipeline. Now, the best reps can overcome that. The best reps can overcome it. But your standard, the 80% of reps can't. And I think that's the problem we're finding.
Bingo. That one hits home for me because that's the exact experience that Brian and I, Brian Elsesser, right?
Of course.
When we built out sales development at Aircall, it was very much the same thing. And it took us a little while to realize it. But when you're signing up for Aircall's a cloud-based phone system, so all the inbound leads were people who like needed to start making phone calls right now. But outbound are people, they don't have a need. Like maybe they don't like their phone system and we can convince them over time to make a big change. But the sales cycle was so much longer. Oftentimes they were stuck in contracts, so they couldn't even switch if they wanted to.
Even if they wanted to. Yeah.
And so we would open up a lot of this pipeline and gain interest, and people would like it because most people were not happy with what was in the market, similar to like Rippling going against, TriNet or whatever. We knew if we made contact with people that they would want something better. But what we learned the hard way was it took a lot of time. And so we would open up all of this pipeline and we're just like, look, we have follow-up dates with these people. Like we tried to buy people out of their contracts and we did some of that, but the kill crushes the margin. And like we did all of this stuff and we really did whatever we could, but ultimately it just wasn't closing as fast as we wanted it to. Yeah. And then you start to look at the average tenure of like my role, his role, and it's like, well, wait a minute, we just did all the work. By the time we're out of here, someone's reaping the benefit of that work later down the road. And you know that they do. You know they did. That pipeline doesn't just get burned up when we leave, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think people need to be very cautious and just aware of that. Like I have always said, if you're building an outbound team, you're on like a 5-year journey minimum. And I know that sounds crazy to say, and no founder wants to hear it. It doesn't mean you won't have some results before 5 years, but like, and it's probably maybe 3, but like I say 5 because I want to be conservative with that sort of like promise. But yeah, just because outbound, you hire a marketer, they start generating some leads through ads that are ready to buy. You cannot expect that same thing with the outbound.
100%. I know we're gonna double click on outbound here in a moment, but just to we talked a lot about the leadership role in this. Let's give some advice to salespeople, individual sellers, because I know you have a big audience there. When you are evaluating the next gig that you take, talk to salespeople that are in the role and understand their mix. Where are their opportunities coming from? Like, don't talk to the hiring manager about this. Don't talk to the recruiter about this. Talk to the individual sales rep, and hopefully they're getting at least half their opportunities from inbound leads. Hopefully,
yes.
And if you're at or above that level, then you can, that's pretty sustainable. I feel pretty good about this. If they're saying like, hey, it's kind of a slog, I'm generating my own, I'm working my network, of course, there's going to be an element of that. And that's good. Like sales reps need to generate their own pipeline, but you need to have some market pull. Otherwise, quota attainment is going to be very, very challenging. So look out for that. That's my advice to salespeople.
I love it. And I would also say if you're entry level and you're looking for a heavy prospecting role, or you're just going to accept one because it's all you can take, probably stick with transactional, right? Stick with the shorter sales cycles so you can just come in every day and sort of crush through it and learn a lot. You're probably not going to love it, but like that's what I sort of did for my first year. And like, I think that's okay. But the people I feel most bad for are the outbound enterprise. Like, and they're just like, what, 12 months goes by, you don't even really know like if you're going to succeed or not. Like that can be really tough. And I think you can put a lot of effort in and almost learn very little in a decent stretch of time. So yeah,
that's great. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Great point about entry level. I was talking to our VP of sales about this, and his name is Steve. He was like 7 years at ServiceNow, and he's been at a couple other AI startups, and now he's our VP of sales. I was asking him about what he looks for in a sales profile. And he's like, I need to know that they know how to close and they know how to forecast. It's like, oh, that's actually a different answer than I was expecting. I was expecting them to have like, I want enterprise, I want complex sale, I want this. He's like, no, I could teach all that.
Yeah,
I could teach all that. He's like, but they need to know how to forecast. They need to know how to get something across the line. He's like, transactional sales gigs are great for that.
Yes.
Because you're doing 3, 4, 5, 6 of those transactions every month.
Yeah.
And you learn how. So anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. And so I love that advice.
Yeah, I have no regrets going in the transactional road. It can be maybe a little bit more difficult to move up into enterprise, but I just think to your point, like you go through the motions so many times that I just think you're probably learning more. If you were to take someone entry level 1 year of transactional sales, someone entry level 1 year of enterprise, like you're just getting a bigger taste of everything in
more bites of the apple.
The transactional. Yeah,
that's what it's all about early in career. It's at bats.
Yeah, exactly. We had to take 100 a day or we lost our job basically. So 100 calls a day. We had to make it was 200 minutes of talk time. We had to schedule 10 meetings for tomorrow, hold 5 meetings today, 50% hold rate, and close 1 sale today. So 210, 5, 1. And we called it a cycle. So if you did all of that in one day, you got a single platform mini baseball bat that said 210, 5, 1 on it. And it was a cycle like in baseball, because hitting every one of those metrics in one day was incredibly hard. But that was what you aimed for, right? So that was it. You would usually average sort of something like that by the end of the week or month. But it was tough, man, but we had so much fun doing it. We had a repeatable process and everyone believed in it. So it was like, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to come in and succeed. You just had to follow the playbook, follow the script and just execute. And
I think that's still true for transactional type businesses. I think we're probably going to transition to like the more enterprise type outbound focus. But I think that's exactly right. Like just come in and do the work. You learn a ton by doing the work. And that sets the foundation for basically anything else that you want to do. I firmly believe that. So keep going.
Cool. Well, I want to ask you about VP sales average tenure. Now, you haven't specifically held a VP sales position, but you've been working with and around them and probably doing many of the same, holding many of the same responsibilities and whatnot. So you have a good sense of this regardless of if it's been your exact title. But what do you think's the overall overarching reason? And we probably don't need to spend a ton of time on this, but I just want to get your high level thoughts there. What do you think's the overarching reason for that that short average tenure? And has it impacted you throughout your career, like just having sales leaders cycling in and out and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think it's too narrow a focus and a misunderstanding of who their primary team is. There's a really important concept for VP and C-level people, and I'm sure this is true up and down the hierarchy, but especially at more senior levels. Like, your team is not your org chart. Your first team really is the cross-functional people that you work with.
Mark just dove into this. I think it was just on a previous episode. I think it was Mark where we talked about first team concept. Yeah.
Mark Koskela?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. Because he gets it, because he worked super closely with the product team at Outreach to guide the product development, and that then has the positive ramifications for his sales team. And I think a lot of salespeople, understandably, Collin, like I don't mean to just be pointing fingers here. It's an easy thing. It's an easy trap to fall into. Like, you're doing the one-on-ones, you're doing the forecast calls, you're doing the live meetings. You are doing a lot of super seller type work, even as a VP of sales. But if that is the only thing that you're focused on, and you don't have a great relationship with marketing, have a great relationship with product, have a great relationship with CS, with your executive team, et cetera, you're going to fail. Like, it's only a matter of time. And you might get away with, if your company's on fire and there's a ton of market pull and you're just, signing checks, like, great, good for you. But at some point, to be a more dynamic VP of sales and then to earn the CRO type role, you have to think about your first team as being that horizontal set of stakeholders. The folks that do very well. And the folks that don't, rotating door.
We did and I mentioned this when I think it was Mark who brought this up. I definitely just had a very recent convo about it. But when we brought on, what was it, head of HR or chief people officer for the first time at Aircall, that was the first thing that she noticed when she came in. She was like, this executive meeting does not feel like an executive meeting. It feels like department heads coming together to all discuss their priorities. Right. And she put us through a big training about like just that first team concept. And it took me a while to even get it, because at first my instinct was I kind of disagreed. I was like, I actually do feel like I'm here representing my people. I actually do feel like I needed to stick up for their rights, or you guys are going to jack their quotas up and do all this, that, and the other, and then they're going to hate me and we're all going to fail. And so I sort of in my head pushed back for a little bit. And I think there's some truth to some of that. Like, you have to advocate for your people and all that sort of stuff, but you need to be able to know how to wear both hats and when to sort of take one off, put the other on, and that sort of stuff. And
because that's what helps you realize the weaknesses in the plan, Collin.
Yeah.
Like, if you are really plugged into other areas of the business, and let's just use the same example we were using before. If you are really plugged in with your marketing leadership, you will really understand the demand mix. You'll understand where they're spending money. What are the events that we're doing? Why are we doing them? What's owned? What's sponsored? What co-marketing partnership? You'll really understand what's going on. And therefore, you're going to understand what is the real quality, not quantity. What is the real quality of pipeline that's going to be coming to my team? And more important, what can our team do to help increase the quality and quantity of that pipeline? And you're going to start to focus on things that may seem somewhat marginal, but success is in the margins. And so you have to lean into these things and have a broader understanding of all these things so that you can make a broader impact. And so to put it in one sentence, the VPs of sales who last make a broader impact. The ones that don't are narrowly focused and narrow impact, even though they might say, well, no, revenue is the most important thing. Like, yes, but there are many things upstream of that you really can have maybe not direct control over, but influence over, indirect control over. And you need to lean into those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And my advice for founders, I'll just throw this in there for anyone who's listening. If you have a VP sales who's falling in that trap, if they're really good at the things that they're really good at, don't get rid of them. Bring someone in above them who knows how to do the next level stuff, because you're just going to get rid of a whole bunch of glue. And then, everything that glue holds together falls apart. And then you bring in some new glue that holds some other stuff together. And you sort of end up like you just took 2 steps backwards to take some forwards. And so I do think that's a mistake we make often in the industry, is we're just like, well, they can't level up, so they're no good at all. And that's a huge mistake. They're usually doing a lot that you don't want to lose yet. So that's one thing I'll throw in there. Let's jump into AI. I want to get your take on what is sort of happening with AI in Outbound and where you think it's headed. And I mean, the general high level question here is like, do you think AI is replacing your outbound salesperson, your AI SDR, so to speak? Or do you think it's becoming a tool that humans need to use? Like, where do you see that going over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's a great question, Collin. It's one I obviously spend a lot of time thinking about, and a lot of our customers are thinking about the same exact thing. What I will say is, the way I think about it is, where is AI going to be infused across the go-to-market engine? Outbound is one of the pillars of your go-to-market engine, but it's just one pillar. Like you need multiple other pillars for your go-to-market coliseum here in this little metaphor. And so you need to be thinking not just about how AI is going to influence outbound, but how can you use AI for account-based marketing, for campaign execution, for inbound lead processing, for deal coaching, for all these other things that comprise the go-to-market execution that you have. So what I am seeing is AI is capable of doing two things, and we can plug into this or drill into this as much as you want. Number one is it's reducing the time it takes to get to an insight. So let's talk about doing account research is a great example of this. Building a great account plan. And I don't just mean like what industry are they in and how many people do they have? Like that's not an account plan. An account plan is where is this company making bets for growth and a brainstorm of how our value prop attaches to those growth bets. That's what an account plan is. It takes a human a couple hours. Like if you or I went to do this and we had to read a 10K, read an earnings call, do all these things, we've done this for years, 20 years, and it would still take us an hour, 2 hours at least to do this. It's not fun. Now imagine like you're new in career person who doesn't really know even what they're looking for, trying to find this insight. They went to an enablement meeting and for 60 minutes, somebody talked to them about how to do this. They're not going to do a good job and it's going to take a long time. So their time to insight is super long. AI makes that in a snap of the fingers. Read the 10K, pull out these insights, ask this, and this question. Great. Now I have my insight. So that's the first thing that AI can do. The second thing that AI can do is compress the time between insight and execution. So let's keep using that same example where it took the SDR or it took the AE or whomever 3 hours to build the account plan. Now you have to go execute on this. We need to write the emails. We need to write the call scripts. We need to do the exec engagement. We need to work with our marketing team to create some content. We want to do custom ads, or maybe we do an event that's based on this insight that we have, or whatever it is. Executing on that is really difficult. Like it takes, even us, it probably takes us 20, 30, an hour to write a great sales email based on the insights that we get. It's hard to do or to write a sequence.
Yeah.
AI does this in the snap of the fingers. Load up what a great example email looks like, what a great example piece of content or event brief or whatever it looks like. And AI can take that insight of the account research and transform it, re-swizzle it, synthesize it into whatever execution channel you want. So now we've reduced the time to insight. We've compressed the time to execution, and now we can run with real velocity here. And the really important point is we're going to do this in a way that's hyper contextualized at scale for every account that we care about. Does this mean every single account in the addressable market that we should reach out to? No, it does not. It means all of the actual accounts that really matter to us that we should be reaching out to right now. And that's the way that we approach things, Collin, internally, is we could sell to any company. We could sell to SMB, we can sell to big enterprise, we can sell to agriculture, we can sell to tech, everything in between. We don't do that though. The I in ideal customer profile needs to do a lot of work. People glaze over it. Like ideal means center of the bullseye. So for us, it's taking the universe from 200,000 accounts down to 1,000. Now we know what our top accounts are. Now we can run this process to do the account research and to do the execution for all 1,000 of those accounts because it's all powered by AI. We're not a huge team. We have 8 salespeople. We have 4 marketing people, and we can create the custom set of outreach that's going to be account based for every single one of these accounts because it's powered by AI. Does this mean that the SDR role is eliminated? No, it does not. It means that the span of control for the SDR changes significantly. So we can go from a universe of having 1 SDR for every 1 rep. We can go to 1 to 2, 1 to 4, 1 to 6. Like we can increase that ratio, or we can give the SDR different types of responsibilities. Maybe the SDR is going to start to execute some account-based marketing type things that a dedicated ABM person might do. Hey, SDR, here's the tool that we're going to use to create custom landing pages. You now are responsible for creating these custom landing pages, infusing them into your messaging. Great. Now our SDR is doing more of a marketing type role. That's one way. The other way is, hey, SDR, we're going to have you producing enterprise pipeline for our more tenured sellers. You're going to run our down market deals. So you're going to go run the more transactional deals that are 5K, 10K a pop and just get your feet wet at doing real sales. And it's like, not all SDR work is real sales, if we're being honest. And so you're going to be,
admin work.
It's a lot of admin work. So we're going to eliminate that admin work so that you can focus on real sales. That way you get to cut your teeth in the sales environment. And when we need somebody on our enterprise sales team, we have a real warm bench of talent that we believe in that has real closing skills. So anyway, like that's how we're seeing things. I know there's a lot of different things, but it's a very long way of saying I don't see the SDR role going away. It's still critical work. It's just augmented and made a lot easier to execute at a high level of quality with the assistance of AI.
I'm with you. I think there's maybe some exceptions where the outbound motion is so repeatable, so proven that they might just throw an AI SDR behind it and they don't care that maybe it doesn't work, 20% less, but the cost goes down. Like there's going to be some cases like that where people just are cranking out this automation. And I think that it's really just better email marketing, right? That's all that is. So I'm with you. I think these are tools that humans need to use to get better at their job. And, it's actually one of the things that you said is similar to what I taught in my course, the Modern Outbound System, which was that I see the role evolving more into a marketing function. Yeah. I see SDRs probably becoming, depending on who you're selling to, but mini content creators, right? Micro influencers. They're out in dark social. They're out in the comments. They're just public facing a bit more and doing more of that marketing type stuff. And I think that when you can layer in the AI to, like you said, reduce or remove that admin work, that's where they can start to do that.
The role that I have, and again, like Collin, we go back to this initial question at the atomic level. If you have to break into ServiceNow, what would you do? What would you do? And the answer for us is, well, we would want to understand what the hell is actually going on inside ServiceNow. So let's collect everything that we can, publicly available information to understand that, but let's augment that publicly available information with the secret information that you get by talking to people at ServiceNow. So we want to talk to the individual sales reps, the individual SDRs, the individual marketing people. Like we want to talk to the quote unquote lower level people to get the ground truth of what's happening inside the account, where their processes are full of friction or painful or whatever it is, because that's going to help us have the conversations with higher level people inside the company. So now
you like the bottom up motion.
I love the bottoms up motion, but again, this is us. This is I'm not going to again. What we talked about before, just because it's our playbook does not necessarily mean it's yours.
Yep.
But at the atomic level, if we want to penetrate an account, we need to do all these things, the rich research, the groundswell type thing, and the executive engagement. So now we divide the labor and we say AI is going to do all the research. Our SDRs are going to do the groundswell type engagement. And our executive team is going to do the outreach to the other executives. Which guess what? That's what executives want. Like a lot of the reason that SDR work is hard is because, a CMO, CRO, a CEO, they're probably not going to want to spend a ton of time talking to somebody who's been in seat for 3 months. But they do want to talk to the other CEO who's working with other CEOs to help implement a go-to-market AI strategy. So if you can execute this mix for the accounts that you care about, not for every account under the sun, and you can start to quote unquote scale this. And I use scale in quotes because it's like mini scale. We're talking about doing this dozens of times, maybe hundreds of times, definitely not thousands of times. This is what's going to be effective. And this is how you're going to be able to put everybody to work. And the machinery is really going to start to click in a very useful way.
Love it. Now, for this next question, assume I know nothing on the subject. I want to see if you can dumb this down and distill this real simply for me. A lot of people asking, and I am not an expert on this subject, to be clear. I obviously understand it, but I want to break it down as dumb as possible because a lot of people are constantly, I see asking this on LinkedIn. I think some people just completely have no idea what it is. So let's try to just give that sort of elementary answer. Like, what is intent and signal data? What do people need to know about it? Like, can you just give sort of an elementary education on that real quick?
Yeah. It's hard, Collin, because it's been somewhat bastardized.
Yes.
And I have a pretty derogatory perspective on what a lot of people think is intent data. Like, I don't give a damn if, quote unquote, someone in Idaho is searching for AI for content marketing. Like, that's not intent to me. That does not signal that the account is actually going to purchase Copy.ai. That means that somebody in Idaho's Googling something.
Yeah.
That's not super high.
And that's so broad too, right?
Like so broad. It's so broad. Now I understand that may be useful for some people and maybe people are better at capitalizing on that quote, that type of signal than I have been.
Phone system, like air call, it's a category, but business phone system was actually way more niche. Whereas AI copywriting, that could mean so many things.
So many things. So if you just broadly define those keywords that you care about, and then your team is getting distracted by the pings of like somebody somewhere is doing something, like that's not super useful for me.
Yeah.
The way I think about intent is much more at the account level, Collin, which is to say, where is a company, and I used this phrase before, I'll use it again. Where is the company making bets for growth? What is the biggest intent signal that I care about right now in my role? We sell a go-to-market AI platform. I want to know which of our target accounts are hiring senior level go-to-market people where AI is in the job description. That's what I want to know. you're hiring a head of RevOps and artificial intelligence is part of the job description, you bet your ass I want to know about that, because they are taking $250K, $300K for a salary to pay that VP of RevOps to implement an AI strategy. Like, that's the best intent signal I could possibly see. So where companies are hiring and specifically what they're hiring for and the detail and job in the job description, I love that as an account signal. Now, you have trained on this. I have trained on this. We've wanted SDRs or AEs or somebody to monitor this inside of their accounts. It's really hard to do. Yeah. If you're an AE and you have 100 accounts, you can't do this.
No,
you can't wake up every day and look at every job description that everybody's hiring for. AI can do this no problem. So you set up a workflow to say, monitor these companies, what they're hiring for, and ping me when they're hiring for this, and this keyword. It's easy. So it's that type of thing. And then like the more obvious ones are, what are they saying on earnings calls? What are they saying in 10Ks? But obviously that's only for public companies. But if you can get that type of insight from that publicly available information, other areas that I look for are CEO interviews, press releases, and product launches. Because press releases, they're going to talk about some sort of strategy. And to execute a strategy, they're making bets on the strategy. And you want to attach your solution to helping them achieve that strategic initiative. Same thing with a product launch. If they roll out a new product, how can you help them make that product successful? You need to reorient your value prop for that strategic initiative that matters to the company. So I think about intent much more at the account level, because I think that's much more strategic. And I think it's a lot easier to adjust your value prop to be tailored to that account based on that strategic initiative that you've uncovered. And if you do that, you're going to get to power a lot more easily, because this is what the executive team is spending time thinking about. The executive team is not thinking about how they can help their content marketing person create more content with AI. They are thinking about, we just expanded into APAC for the first time. We need to rewrite all of our messaging in 6 different languages, or we're going to be dead in the water. Now we can help them with that APAC expansion. And that's a much different conversation.
Love it. Let's go rapid fire on these last 3. Tying into the last question, what tools do people need to do what you just described?
Yeah.
What's the ideal stack there?
I could be super self-serving and
be biased. Be biased. Go for it.
I can tell you Copy.ai. There has to be some sort of AI solution that's helping you with this synthesis of insights and then helping you with the execution. You can do this with one-off tools like ChatGPT or Claude or something like that, but it requires everybody to like understand how to prompt, and that's really difficult. So you want some sort of purpose-built solution that's going to help you execute whatever you can execute. And without getting into the dangerous territory of having 65 different point solutions for every single thing that you're doing. You want the data to be interoperable. You want the processes to be compounding because they're actually working together. And so look for some sort of solution that can allow you to do multiple things, leverage AI to execute multiple pillars of your go-to-market strategy.
Now, is just so I'm clear, because I am not super, probably the area where I'm least experienced right now are all these new tools that have really come into the space. Like, is Copy.ai and Clay, like, are these the same ballpark of tools, or are they totally different things?
It's a similar concept where instead of requiring, an individual prompt to an LLM to accomplish some task, it's chaining prompts together to accomplish a complex process. We just have different. Is it safe to say you would generally pick one or the other? Like, you would probably not need both of those tools, or are they not even that similar? There's overlap. We have some customers that use both, but Copy.ai focuses a lot more on like the execution part of like creating or generating content. And I say content as like any.
Clay's more like data searching, right?
Yeah. And there's like a lot of great operational use cases for Clay that you could use Copy.ai for as well. But Clay has a great integration. Like there's overlap. There's overlap with every AI solution right now. So you just need to understand what you're trying to make happen, and can these solutions, hopefully as few solutions as possible, make as much possible happen for you.
Love it. Okay. Is sales development a function of sales or marketing?
Yeah. SDR is a go-to-market function. I think we are wrapping ourselves into pretzels unnecessarily.
I like that answer. Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter if your entire go-to-market engine truly is connected. And if you're really executing that account-based strategy for accounts, and the marketing team knows its role, and the SDR team knows its role, and the sales team knows its, and the execs know their role, and all the rest, like if you're truly operating together, then what the hell is the difference? Like honestly, it doesn't matter. You just have to make sure that you have, I think that the reason it matters is more for people's growth paths than anything else. And so if you want your SDR team to be a feeder team for sales, it probably makes more sense for it to be on the sales team. If you want your SDR team to be a feeder team to marketing, you probably want the SDR team on marketing. And so that's the big decision that I think matters most. I don't think it really matters from an execution standpoint. Again, as long as that execution really is tightly interwoven.
I completely agree. I wasn't sure if you'd have a hard, passionate answer on that, but I'm totally with you. Do you want to throw in a quick elevator pitch for Copy AI?
Yeah, for sure. So Copy.ai is a go-to-market AI platform, as I talked about before. And the way I think about it, Collin, is like every element of your go-to-market organization, SDR, sales, marketing, operations, like they all have playbooks. The pages in those playbooks are processes. Now, to the old school was you would do an enablement session, you'd train people on those processes, and you get pretty middling results. Like you do the 90-minute session to build an account plan. How many of the 100 sellers can actually build an account plan after that? Like 0, 1. So now what Copy AI allows you to do is take every page of that playbook and codify it with AI, and then extend the value of that codification to everybody in your organization. So now everybody gets the best version of the account plan delivered right in their CRM so they can go and execute with speed. And every single page of your playbook can be codified that way. The way you do outbound, the way you do close loss engagement, the way you do deal management, the way you do your qualification, medic, spice, whatever, like all of that lends itself to codification inside of AI. And that's what Copy AI allows you to do.
Awesome. Is this something an AE can just jump in and try today, or do they need their manager and their whole team? Can they just go try it themselves?
Yeah. We can have workflows for out of the box for account research and things like that you can go and check out, and writing sales emails and all the rest. So feel free to sign up, reach out to me if you want some pointers, and we'd love to chat.
And Copy.ai is the website, right?
That's the one.
Awesome. Where should people follow you? You are obviously on LinkedIn. If you're not following Kyle Coleman on LinkedIn, go do so. I found you on X. Are you also posting on there frequently?
No, I only really do LinkedIn because it's not anonymous. And I like the fact that your like name and work profile is attached to LinkedIn, because then you can't be an asshole.
That is really the upside. Yeah, there's some social, you have some accountability there, right? In your behavior. Well, I'll let you jump. I know we're a couple minutes over. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a long time. We'll have to catch up soon sometime.
Always a pleasure, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
Cheers.